Hello and welcome to another episode of The Swing. As always, it's your boy HK, and I'm joined by my co-host, that guy Owais, as we have reached the end of the regular season. A tumultuous, wacky, unpredictable, just altogether crazy season that was highlighted by injuries, by COVID protocols, by all these things that have probably changed around the standings and the landscape of this playoff race quite a bit differently than we may have otherwise thought of at the start of the season. Obviously, that guy, Owais, and I had preseason predictions, had stuff that we talked about with regards to where we felt these teams would end up in the standings. By and large, those predictions all went out the window once COVID protocols and all these other things hit to really mess around with the teams, their health, and frankly, just straight up player availability. So with that in mind, we have now reached into the precipice of the playoffs. Obviously, the play-in tournament started today. We had one game already go through in which the Indiana Pacers just absolutely walloped an inexperienced Charlotte Hornets squad, missing Gordon Hayward, and just all together petered off near the end of the season. Obviously, both that guy Owais and I were pretty high on them, but it didn't work out. That being said, since we are, though, at the end of the regular season, we are going to spend the time on this episode really going through those end-of-season awards, really coming down to who has made that outsized impact, who has really stamped their authority on this season, made themselves that much bigger of a star than they were at the start of the season, and who's going to walk away with the hardware. But before we do that, as always, the Swing Podcast is proudly sponsored by Thrive Fantasy, which is your daily fantasy sports props app every evening. And all you have to do is go ahead and join them and pick over and under on different statistical measures that are there. You have different players, different measures. You pick over and under. And if you happen to have a lineup that's in the top 10% at the end of the night on these tournaments, you will win big cash prizes. And as a loyal listener of The Swing, if you use the promo code SWING, SWING, you will get your deposit matched up to $50 on your first deposit. So sign up and prop up today. That guy Owais, we are here. We are at that end of season. Just before we even get into the awards, what do you take away from the season? What are you going to remember about the craziness that was the 2020-2021 regular season?
I mean, adversity. I think adversity is the one word that comes to my mind, especially considering like all the injuries, the uncertainty with COVID regulations and like actually getting COVID, health and safety protocols, and the schedule, how the uncertainty of who's going to end up in what spot, especially with this play-in situation that we were just talking about. Yeah. Which players did shine that we never would have expected to shine that bright, or teams for that matter. And vice versa, the other way around. Some guys that didn't perform to what we expected them to perform to, and some teams that didn't either, right? So I think I would say adversity. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, adversity is probably the most fitting adjective that can be put out to this entire season. The other thing I would say would be underdogs, because there have been a numbers that have vastly outperformed what their preseason expectations will be, one of which it has, in my mind, the most improved player of the year. And we're going to get a chance to speak about all of those awards in a moment as well. But with that in mind, let's just go ahead, first of all, quickly talk about the play-in tournament, because we are going to have an episode where we really get to focus on the playoff bracket. We're actually waiting till the end of the play-in tournament to have a special episode. So that would be likely for this Friday, in which we both put up what we think our predictions are going to be as far as the playoffs are concerned. Who's going to be the representative from the West, who's going to be the representative from the East, and who is going to walk away in our minds with the big prize at the end of the season. But given how things have worked out so far, obviously we just spoke about the Indiana Pacers walloping the Charlotte Hornets in that 9-10 matchup, which means that Charlotte goes home and the Indiana Pacers are going to be facing the winner of the game that's actually going on right now between the Washington Wizards and the Boston Celtics. So before we get any further, as far as the Washington Wizards and the Boston Celtics are concerned, what do you see happening? Where do you see this going? I believe that guy Owais has frozen on me in terms of how incredible his feelings are for this entire thing. But before we go ahead and get him to join back in, I'm sure he'll be there. From my perspective, this has just been an amazing season as far as the Washington Wizards are concerned. Obviously, they themselves have dealt with a ton of adversity all the way through, have had actually a pretty wrecked season as far as health is concerned for a lot of their guys. Hashimura was gone for a while. Thomas Bryant gone for the entire season early on in there. And they have done quite well to be able to get themselves into that top 8 seed. It obviously wasn't something that seemed like it would be the case right off the bat, but Russell Westbrook putting together his 4th triple-double season, just 4th. Right? Again, we already had an episode where we spoke about just how insane that entire sequence of events is. And of course, apart from having his 4th season, he also broke the Big O, Oscar Robertson's record for most triple-doubles as well. And much as we spoke about on that episode, his triple-doubles are by and large leading to his team's victories, and he has had an absolutely insane second half of the season to really will these Washington Wizards, along with Bradley Beal, into this playoff spot. So I'm totally behind that momentum against the Boston Celtics teams that not only is dealing with injuries with regards to Jaylen Brown out, Tristan Thompson, I believe, is still out as well, and just niggles here and there for players like Marcus Smart, Kemba Walker not playing up to their standards this season. So I just feel like the Celtics, who have been a complete disappointment this season thus far, are not going to be able to get past this matchup. And I don't even think they could necessarily go past the next matchup.
Okay.
So Wizards for me, and I don't like the Wizards. Everyone knows it. But for my boy Russell Westbrook, who's, by the way, classic OG jersey I am repping over here, I do believe they are going to be victorious tonight. What say you, that guy Owais?
That's a great analysis you got over there, buddy. But here's the thing. I'm going to talk about experience when it comes to, just playing as a team. And, you have 2 superstars that you're riding on for them to perform in order to will them to a victory. I don't know what the score is right now, and we'll get to that eventually. But the Boston Celtics are well coached. They have very deep talent, as much as we'd like to argue they don't. And without even Jaylen Brown or Tristan Thompson, they can still find a way. And to that I say, I have, as much as I hate Boston as a team, Jason Tatum has shown over and over again that never, ever count out, the Boston Celtics with his leadership. He can turn a game entirely around, and he can go into that Kobe Mamba mode. I know you don't agree with this Mamba mentality thing, but we do. And he can take over and will a team to victory, put them all on his shoulders, on his back, and carry them. And I think that's going to happen today. And that's that. I already predicted that Indiana would take that game against Charlotte. So it's unfortunate, that Gordon Hayward wasn't there. But Indiana, again, well-coached team. As much as, there was turmoil over the season with the players and the coaches, overall, you can see that team has depth. They have, even if they're not the most talented team, they're built well, coached well, and you would expect them with the playoff experience that they have, and some ex-Raptors from that system, O'Shea Brissett, baby, that they have, they could pull through, and they did. And credit to Charlotte for an incredible season. I think they were the most exciting team this year to watch by far. So shouts to the commentators, Kevin, our good friend Kevin, who, usually did join us in our podcast, maybe come a little bit later today, but he watched every single game, and we really want to see what he says about that. But anyway, let's move away from that and go to the Western Conference now. Okay, so I've made my predictions already for all of the West and East play-ins, and so I personally think from the West it's going to be 2 teams, and from those 2 teams, of course, we've got, and it's going to go into the narrative of what I think the MVP for this season should be.
Okay,
is Steph Curry. if Steph Curry is able to get these guys into the playoffs right now through this play-in, which I do think they will,
Right.
Golden State Warriors will be that 7th seed, and then the 8th seed will go to, and no one probably thinks this, but the San Antonio Spurs. I really think
Wow.
is the season that you guys will see just how much, like, the sad thing is it's underappreciated how difficult this season has been for the San Antonio Spurs as well, and how they've, with this team that they have, how guys like DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, even Rudy Gay have been like absolutely. Jakob Hurtl's actually played a fantastic role on that team, but they've willed their way to be in that play-in where a lot of people had counted them out, and especially in a competitive Western Conference. So for those that think that this team is just like one game and one and done, sorry. I think they're going all the way to the playoffs. First round exit, mind you, but at the end of the day,
first round
I
exit.
do think the Lakers will not make the playoffs this year. You heard it here first.
Wow. Man, that's that guy Owais has been known for a number of I won't say outlandish, but let's just say aggressive predictions out there.
Same thing I did for the All-Star game, baby. Who came out on top? There you go. That's all I can say about that.
Fair enough.
Eye test, baby. I know what's happening.
Well, obviously that guy Owais has gone ahead and made those predictions. I'm going to be a little bit different on that side of it. Probably bear on the side of conservatism. I wouldn't even say it's conservatism, but talent. That 7-8 matchup is going to be an absolute dogfight tomorrow. And those are the two best teams of these four that are remaining to be able to go ahead and get in. So as far as I'm concerned, despite Steph's best efforts to make it an absolutely incredible game, and I have no doubts he will, I do believe the Lakers will go ahead and pull that one out to get in as the 7th seed, while the spoils of whoever wins between Memphis and San Antonio, who I do think will be Memphis just because of them getting back into their health. Jaren Jackson is back, and that is just a more talented team than that San Antonio one, despite the experience that you have absolutely alluded to. Regardless, they're both going to be facing off against each other to go ahead and take on Steph, who's just on too much of a mission to not get this Warriors team into the playoffs. So we're talking about that 7-8. I've got the Lakers as 7. I've got the Golden State Warriors as 8. And those are going to be the representatives for the play-in tournament of the Western Conference. But speaking of representatives, we are getting yet another representative onto our podcast. Welcome back, Kevin, who has been a long-standing watcher, has come on a number of podcasts here for us, and it's always been awesome to be able to get his insights, not only about the game that's been going on, but just his passion, which probably took a little bit of a hit today with the Charlotte Hornets. So welcome, Kev. Welcome back.
Glad to be here. Glad to be back. Awesome. Yep.
Man, so obviously Owais was giving us a little bit of his insights about everything as far as the Charlotte Hornets are concerned. Not the kind of game they would have expected, not the performance the fans would have expected given how exciting that team has been. But in the end, probably experience overmatched, maybe tactically outclassed, while the Indiana Pacers put a walloping on them. What was your take of that game today?
Yep, hit it dead on the bolt there. It's a lot of inexperience with the new youngsters. I mean, we were talking about it earlier in our chats. We believe that Charlotte overperformed this year, and to be even in the conversation to a play-in, they overachieved. So, there's a lot of good takeaways from the season. I think I've watched a lot of Charlotte ball this year, and I still believe that they have a rookie in the year in Lamello Ball, even though he missed a lot of time and came back. Mm-hmm. It's going to be tight with him and Anthony Edwards, but I still think he'll pull it off. They have a lot of young guards. I still think they do need to make a big move in the offseason, probably get rid of Terry Rozier, who had a pretty good, decent year this year as well. And possibly get another star in along with them. The loss of Gordon Hayward today, obviously, what he brings to the table. He's
of course
been there, done that. So missing him, I think they went like 8-16 without him since he got his injury. So obviously that was a big part in the loss today, and you would love to have that experience in there. But a lot of key takeaways. I like the team. They're young. They're nice. Who doesn't love their commentators? They're one of the best in the league.
So you want Rozier to leave? I mean, that's like part of the season is that Rozier scary.
100%. There was just passion that was brought.
You still have your posters. You still have Miles Bridges. You still have the young guys. You still have the guys. So, yep. You'll have all those guys. So I still think they need to upgrade their center position. As much as I like Biyombo, he's a solid guy off the bench, but they need another solid big to start with. So I know Zeller is a little, to me, he's like a type of Baines type of guy. I don't know what you saw in Raptors this year. So I don't know if I'll go that level, but they still
ahead of Baines.
They still need that presence in there. So. Again, they had a lot of bright spots in the year. A lot of consistencies throughout. Like PJ Washington, for example, saw some bright spots in him. He had a 40-point game early in the year. Obviously, Rozier did his thing. Hayward was being himself. So a lot of positive takeaway. I still think they'll be force of record later on.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think if the Hornets had stayed into that top 4 position where they were really looking good when they had full health and everything, then we might even be talking about James Borrego in that Coach of the Year conversation, which obviously Monty Williams was awarded. It's the one award that we do know thus far. But with that in mind, yes, the Charlotte Hornets have a lot to look forward to. We'll see what the offseason brings to them. And looks like we also have our resident Golden State Warriors fan on here, Sanchit, giving us his prediction about the Warriors taking out the Lakers, which is aligned with what Owais thinks.
Bring that energy, baby.
As I said, I think it's a bit too far to be able to do that. The champs aren't just going to lay down like that. But Kev, what do you think about that matchup? It's going to be wild. Where do you see it going?
A lot of players, obviously, they hate this play-in. Well, obviously, one comes to mind, LeBron, obviously being in it. I love it, and I love this play, and it's awesome for the fans. It's games like this you're looking forward to go in and out. So
baby, for sure.
Yeah, for me, my prediction, I actually have the Warriors beating the Lakers tomorrow.
Oh shoot!
I don't know
if you listened to the podcast a little earlier, and he's kind of taking in some of the stuff that I was saying. He's my favorite fan over here. He loves my analysis and stuff like that. My predictions. Kevin's always like, "Always, you're the master."
I get props for props. Don't worry. I mean, look, we know Steph is, and he's a warrior. He's a warrior for a reason. He's on the Warriors as well. This guy is not gonna go down without a fight, obviously. And same, I'm not gonna take away anything from LeBron. I'm not gonna take it from AD. They're obviously their playoff history from last year to this year. Obviously, this is their second year playing together. There's been a lot of obviously injuries and not enough playing time together. Do they have the better team? I do think so, for sure. On paper, with the depth and everything, they should come out with the victory tomorrow. But I just feel something in Steph tomorrow, man. Like I'm seeing, and I know Stan's saying 50. I'm saying 60.
Yo, you know what? I love that because it's funny. Harris earlier mentioned it's the year of the underdogs. That's the word that came to his mind when it came to like this season. So I'm really excited. Harris, what do you have to say about this prediction? Because you said the Lakers. Why do you think the Lakers will beat the Warriors?
Well, first and foremost, let me preface all of this by saying that Steph is one of my favorite players in the league, has always been from years past. So I would absolutely love for something incredible to happen in which they go ahead and do that. But as much as I am probably aligned with the fact that Steph is going to have a big night, I just have very little faith in the supporting cast that's there for the Golden State Warriors.
Hey,
I don't disagree with that at all. I think
Gray has come back well, and I actually think he's finally rediscovered what his role was. They were probably asking him to do a little bit too much offensively early on, which wasn't his game. And
right,
the credit to Andrew Wiggins for actually stepping up and taking a little bit of that pressure away from Steph Curry. But it just goes back down to purely top-end talent, which is going to show its way through. And as much as Steph is going to be out there doing his thing, I just can't see a scenario, first of all, in which any of the interior defense of the Warriors have anything on Anthony Davis.
For sure.
Who, in and of himself, has kind of been low-key as far as this year is concerned. It's probably a bit of a underperforming year as far as he has gone from his own statistical lines, from his own health. A couple of things have really, take that shine away from what Anthony Davis has done. And it's almost kind of got people to forget about the impact that he has. This is probably the most dominant big in the league on both ends of the floor. Yeah. Consistently a defensive player of the year candidate, and his offensive game is as efficient as it comes. So for me, apart from LeBron, who's always going to be LeBron and he's always going to be involved and his fingers all over, it's going to be Anthony Davis that takes over this game in my mind and put the Lakers over. And of course, we've talked about the depth. We've talked about what the Lakers have in terms of playoff experience now. Some of that went away with Rajon Rondo, obviously not with the team anymore, Dwight Howard not there, but they still have that replaced in KCP. Obviously has done so much for them last year, was huge for them comes the postseason and really showed why he was there on the team. But even just beyond that, there's just so much depth on the squad. Dennis Schroeder is really looking forward to really putting his absolute fingerprints over a playoff run as well. So it's just too much, too strong. I don't see the Lakers losing.
Here's what I have to say about that. You guys are downplaying the Andrew Wiggins effect as much as there's no Andrew Wiggins effect, honestly, but there will be after tomorrow night, 9:30. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I truly think that Andrew Wiggins is going to be the X factor to the reason as to why Golden State Warriors win. Now, there's a lot of Curry's on a roll. He's going to do Curry things. Do I think he's going to drop 50? I don't think so. I think the defense is going to be that locked in on them. They're going to be that physical. Even though people have been all season, sometimes it gets overwhelming. And, to some degree, the Lakers have size. That might be uncomfortable for Steph. But like I said, one thing that Andrew Wiggins has that's on and off, but he does have, is when he's on, there's next to no one who can stop him because he can shoot then from anywhere, mid-range, three-point land. He can get to the free throw line, especially when you need those buckets. And surprisingly, to our surprise, not surprise, I said surprise twice, but at the end of the day, his defense has shot up in terms of efficiency this entire season. And again, comes down to coaching, comes down to a lot of other things. But Andrew Wiggins, I'm telling you right now, is going to be the X factor as to why the Golden State Warriors win tomorrow. You heard it here first, and we'll move on to the next one. The Spurs and Portland, is it? No, not
Memphis Grizzlies. Come on, man. Memphis Grizzlies.
So who do you guys have? I can't remember the other team because I just have them not winning.
It's because you've been struck by Lithuanian lightning, and it's just a bit too much for you to handle, because the Memphis Grizzlies, who have probably deserve to be in a better spot than they are this moment from this 9th seed. Again, you have to remember their franchise cornerstone, apart from Ja Morant, in Jaren Jackson Jr., only played 11 games this season and dealt with essentially a mysterious comeback date all the way. He was supposed to be back in November. Much to the chagrin of my fantasy team and much to the chagrin of Memphis Grizzlies fans everywhere, it just kept getting pushed back. And he came back all the way in April and has only now started to really work his way back into game shape. His minutes restriction was finally lifted, and he is once again showing just exactly why he has been such a ridiculously game-changing player for the Memphis Grizzlies, whether it be from the fact that he's their best three-point shooter while also being their best rim protector, and I would argue their best scorer as well. He's been for this long period of time. So to me, Memphis is peaking at the right time, getting their health in at the right time, and especially in this matchup here, I just don't see how the San Antonio Spurs, who have been dealing with their own injury concerns, own LaMarcus Aldridge retirement, like all these things that have just taken away from a Spurs season that otherwise isn't all that bad. DeMar probably had a career season as far as his playmaking is concerned, but it's just going to be a tough situation in which the Memphis Grizzlies will probably just straight up outsize them while still being able to make up for the fact that their shooting is going to come around if you just have enough gravity created on the inside.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and I understand that they are a very big team, and so you'll have a lot of trouble defending some of their even their guards. They're pretty big and sizable, right? So it's a tough task. However, with that being said, the anchor and the reason why Memphis will lose is not because of Ja Morant. It's not because of Valanciunas. Those guys are really, really great. But I'm going to say the homeboy, love him because he's Canadian, but at the same time, don't understand him half the time. He's played inconsistent his entire career, and his inconsistency in a bad way is going to show up tomorrow, and that's Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks is going to try to chuck up shots, try to change the game. He's going to get overly physical with the team, probably follow himself out like he did last time against Steph, even though he played great defense, by the way. But the problem is, I think that his discipline is something that's in question a lot of time, especially the bigger the game is. Don't get me wrong. He can lock in. We don't know what we're going to expect from him, but I think it's going to be on the negative side. And the reason why the Spurs end up winning is because of him. And again, we talk about Valanciunas. I don't think there's a big in this league, like traditional, that not many can match up with him. Even Embiid struggles against a Jonas Valanciunas. You get what I'm saying? But Jakob Poeltl is not some guy who gets bullied around. He's bred from the Raptors, the same cloth that Valanciunas was bred from. You know what I mean? And he's a big kid. You know what I mean? He plays very sound defense, and he can stop guys. He can make plays happen. He's got great picks. On the pick and roll, the San Antonio Spurs are fantastic. He can help space that floor for DeMar when he needs it, and he needs to go iso ball. Because personally, I don't think there's anyone on Memphis that can go iso ball effectively. You could talk about Ja Morant, but I don't think Ja Morant has like a mid-range like that. You know what I'm saying? The only person I've seen try those things is Dillon Brooks, and he's not very good at it, quite frankly. So at the end of the day, I got the San Antonio Spurs. I go with my boy DeMar. I got the gray and black here on me. With especially praying for my brothers in Palestine. And, apart from that, the Spurs are going. Spurs and Golden State. You heard it here first, boys. But anyway, we should get right. Anyone else need to add to this because the game is on and we need to get through these awards. Okay?
Before we get Kev, what are you going to say as far as your predictions are concerned?
It's going to be a good game. I think that Memphis is going to take it tomorrow. I have Memphis, and reason being, I think it's going to come down to the guard play, and I don't see. I get where DeMar is going to go. He's been there before. Obviously, we know his past in the playoffs. We haven't seen him since that exit a couple of years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does, how he's going to go through it. He's obviously the guy there. He has to take them through it. There's no Aldridge anymore, so it's DeMar with a younger team as well. So it's not even the same Spurs team we're used to. So I believe Memphis can pull it off this time with the guard play, and obviously JV's going to do his thing. I think he's going to have 20-20 tomorrow. I love Poeltl. I love what he's doing with San Antonio right now. I just don't think it's going to be a fun matchup actually. JV
it is definitely.
That would be a good matchup. We're used to seeing that all the time. So yeah. I just think JV will have the edge over that in the glass, and it's going to come down to that in the grindhouse too. I believe they're playing. So it's going to go on the defense and the guard plays. I'm going to edge Memphis over them.
Sweet. So the edge is what Kev is talking about, and we're going to find out exactly who does have that edge when they both tip off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So definitely looking forward to keeping an eye out on that. And of course, the Warriors and Lakers tip off at 10 p.m. after that. So it's just going to be an insane night of basketball for the Western Conference for us to find out exactly who takes that first step towards the playoffs. But speaking of having that edge and taking that first and next step, we move on to the awards as far as the regular season is concerned. Obviously, there are 6 awards that are given out at the end of the season. First of all, the major one being the MVP. You get the Sixth Man of the Year. You get the Coach of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved Player. And all of those come around for guys who have really pushed themselves above and beyond what you may have otherwise expected. So let's start from the one that has already been awarded to speak a little bit about it. Adrian Wojnarowski had his tweet earlier in the day in which the Coach of the Year has been announced, and it has been awarded, in my mind, incredibly deservingly so, to the 51-21 Phoenix Suns that went ahead and had Monty Williams at the helm this year. Obviously, Monty had been dealing with tons and tons of personal distress, personal baggage. His wife passed away from that terrible car accident the year prior, and that was just a huge hit to the entire NBA community. But for him to come back to the helm alongside Chris Paul and go ahead and bring a Phoenix Suns team that missed out on the playoffs last year, but obviously showed great promise in the bubble, to go ahead and turn that around into a second seed finish. What do you guys think about that Coach of the Year performance? We'll start with Kev.
Fully well deserved. When you asked me before the season if I saw Phoenix in the team top 3, I would be laughing. I would not even think or consider them to be even top 5, to be honest with you. Obviously, the presence of CP3 is there. You can see it. It's been doing it for years. Wherever he goes, you could see the presence he has towards that team. So obviously that has something to do with it. But Monty Williams is a great coach, and all the Phoenix games I saw this year were all well coached. Everything he did, from the defensive schemes to his offensive sets, dealing with Booker and his new 2-guard. Usually, he's a 2-guard usually, but less handling with the ball. He doesn't have less pressure off the ball with him with Chris Paul there. So, it's a really good team. They're nice and young as well. They're obviously a lot of brand new guys are going to be new faces in the playoffs this year, with CP3 guiding them. I think it's Devin Booker's first one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. All those guys, even even the big. I keep forgetting his name.
DeAndre Ayton.
Yes, Ayton. Yeah, he's been extremely well this year as well, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go. It's a lot just like a Charlotte, similar. A lot of new faces, a lot of young players, and they have that experience in CP3. So I'm intrigued to see how well they're going to play. Unfortunately, they might have to end up playing like a Lakers or Warriors type of thing, but that's just the way it is. And I'm just intrigued to see how they're going to be. So well deserved, and
Yeah, and absolutely, to be the best, you got to beat the best, and they're going to get their opportunity to do that. Tons of people have been waiting, myself included, to see Booker in the playoffs and see exactly what kind of promise he can bring on there. I know that guy Owais is another one of those. So tell me, how excited are you for Monty and his boys, including Devin Booker, to make their first playoff experience?
Extremely excited. I mean, who isn't, right? If anything, seeing that Chris Paul's narrative continues to be that much more profound, and finally getting the chance to see Book what I'm booking the playoffs is making me so excited, as you can tell. The fact that the team is built pretty well. You have your traditional sort of big who can do it all, and then you have your pure scorer, which is in Devin Booker, and then you have Chris Paul who can facilitate the rest of the guys, and you have those other pieces that pretty much come in and on a night-to-night basis and do the rest, right? So they have a very good recipe right there to make a pretty solid run this playoffs. However, when it comes to the coach of the season, I was Monty Williams, well deserved. There was a few other coaches that I feel like are kind of not almost given the credit that should be given to them. And, one of them is Tom Thibodeau. I don't care what anyone says, what he's done with that New York bunch, to see them at the 4th seed and the way that they're playing with the talent that these are pretty much, I'm going to say it, like ISO players that somehow mix well, or like misfits that mixed well. And to do that, it's not easy, right? And he should be given credit. Now, do I think he deserves Coach of the Year? Probably not, but he should at least be mentioned. And then another person that we definitely need to talk about, and early in the season, I was kind of a little bit disrespectful to him, as Harris and I, had podcasts where we talked about the Utah Jazz, and I'm like, the who? The first round exits? But you take a look at Quinn Snyder and, how locked in he's had Utah all season long, being the best team in the West. You tell me there's a defensively impeccable team. That guy deserves a lot of credit too, and I think he's the runner-up, if anything, or he could be like interchangeable for Coach of the Year, right? And last but not least, you got to give mention to Steve Nash, being the first season that he's come in, and even though you guys are gonna say, oh, he already has an established like superstar, this, that, blah blah blah, all that is true, but we cannot forget the fact that there's a ton of egos on that team as well. And to manage that, and whether you can say that was the players But to understand the players or like understand the situation and still have those guys performing on all cylinders, getting the most out of, guys like Jeff Green and, Joe Harris, like that is insane. And then somehow getting the additions of all these other guys, Blake Griffin, it's been fun to watch as well as Brooklyn's a cheat code. No, he does not deserve Coach of the Year, but he does deserve credit for his first season with, assistant coach Mac D'Antoni. But that's what we got to say about that. Coach of the Year, congratulations to Monty Williams. Let's move on to the next one. What is on the list?
Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and move on into what I consider to be instant offense, what I consider to be one of the key positions in any successful team's arsenal, which is the bench unit, which is the guy who comes off the bench as your sixth man to really go ahead and energize on a night where your starters may be going, or to really give that respite when your other guys need to get a little bit of breather in without having any sort of drop off. So sixth man of the year. And to me, this is where we again go back to what you were just saying about the Utah Jazz, what they have done with regards to not only becoming the number one three-point shooting team in the league this year, which is obviously a little different than what we've otherwise seen from the Utah Jazz in years past. And in many ways, their offense was a little bit predictable, was a little bit slow, but all of that has been changed around in this last year, in which not only has Mike Conley found his way, but this one guy who I just never liked, but has 100% turned it around this year, and that is Jordan Clarkson, who to me is my front runner, my shoe-in for the sixth man of the year, having an absolute career season, 18 points a game off the bench, shooting nearly 40% from three, and just the amount of heat check games that he's had in which Utah had been struggling on early, but then just absolutely turned around, which that bench unit, Jordan Clarkson. So I'll go ahead and get Owais to start this time around because that's my pick. Who do you have as the sixth man of the year?
I 100% agree with you right here. Jordan Clarkson, I had him as an all-star pick this year, but what they say, the six men never get, all-star picks. Lou Williams never gotten one. But yeah, Jordan Clarkson breaks down the game. Again, another guy that you, right from the get-go, start of his career, you saw that he had one mindset, and that was go, go, go. And with Cleveland, it was working some nights, not working some nights. But then he comes into a system, a well-coached system, and with, the entire freedom to go and just score however the hell you want in whatever way you can. And he does that. And he scores about 18 to 20 points a game. And some nights he takes over. Literally that run that they need to sustain that lead, you put in a Jordan Clarkson and that continues, right? And so, no, without a doubt, tatted king over there in Utah. So shout out to Jordan Clarkson. That's my pick.
Yeah, I am not even. It's a runaway for me as well. What he was able to do this year with Utah, along with like guys like Ingles and stuff too, who probably even is probably even up there as well with the sixth man of the year. But yeah, Clarkson, when he first came into the league and I saw him when he was with Lakers, for example, he was nowhere near the shooter he was now, coming off the bench and giving you that Lou Williams type of vibe. Coming and give you buckets after buckets after buckets. So what I'm seeing with him this year, Utah, is absolutely amazing, and he's well deserved for him. He hasn't won it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty went away with him. And he's obviously one of the reasons where Utah is today off that bench, and it gives you that bench point that you need to sustain when the starters are out. So yeah, he's one of those guys, and I'm really impressed with his game this year, to be honest with you. And he's well deserved for a sixth man.
Well, it looks like we have a consensus as far as that's concerned. Me personally, I think the other guy I was potentially thinking of was TJ McConnell at some point as the other candidate for me, with just what Indiana's done and him being the lead assist guard off the bench and has just been an absolute game changer for them as well. Once again today, although pushed again into the starting lineup because of all their COVID protocols and everything. But it's pretty clear that Jordan Clarkson has been the front runner all year long, and I'm pretty sure he is going to be walking away with the hardware at the end of the season. But we will find out because these awards often get announced by the time around conference finals, so we'll see how we go with that. But moving on, let's go ahead and move on into the first-year guys. the guys who are coming in with all the expectations to really turn around the fortunes of what could otherwise be struggling franchises. Guys that have come in as top picks on these lottery prizes that have been struggling year in, year out, with the hope that they can strike gold and actually make a turnaround for their season. So, Rookie of the Year. Now, this is actually probably the one area in which I was a bit conflicted, because in my mind, there's actually three guys that are legitimate contenders to be the Rookie of the Year. And let's just throw it out there. Lamello Ball, 100% for the Charlotte Hornets. Anthony Edwards for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Tyrese Halliburton for the Sacramento Kings. All three of those guys have had absolutely insane seasons, not only for a pure statistical standpoint, but just the way they've come out is played. A lot of it has to do with the confidence that they've brought to the game, and also just the way their games have developed as the year goes on. Because oftentimes you'll actually see it the other way. Guys will start off super hot. Guys will start off just absolutely on fire because people don't know what's going on with them. They're not on scouting reports. And then they'll hit that rookie wall and then start to peter off. And oftentimes you'll find that by the end of the season, they're a bit figured out. They got to go back and rework on their game. But in the minds of these three guys, it's actually kind of been the other way around, especially Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton. Both of these guys started off in a minimal role, started off in a scenario where their shooting was off, where their role in the offense was really, really off, and they worked their way up to become, in Tyrese Halliburton's case, the most reliable ball handler on their squad. By the end of the season, was in fact leading their team in assists and was actually with the highest on ball percentage for the squad on a team that had De'Aaron Fox, which is, a very, very great development in and of itself. And for Anthony Edwards, who I'm going to go ahead and spoil, I think he's my Rookie of the Year pick for the reasons that offensive juggernaut for the Minnesota Timberwolves, with just his wide array of abilities to not only put up points in bunches, but to do it down the stretch in clutch situations for the Minnesota Timberwolves again and again in a year where they lost Malik Beasley to different external things. We won't talk about that. And just the team in general that has been just really, really in the search of something to spark them. He has been doing that. That being said, I'll let Kev talk about LaMelo Ball because, as you said, the Hornets boy all the way through has been incredible. Anthony Edwards is my pick. Who is your pick, Kev?
LaMelo Ball is my pick this year for Rookie of the Year. We started the season. He started off obviously off the bench, and he made an impact right away. Obviously, you could see that with his near triple doubles almost every game, and I think that was good enough for the coach to put him in the starting lineup, which he eventually did. And then since then, he was obviously, I think he was competing with. By then, he was only competing with Tyrese Halliburton, who was obviously putting up similar numbers. He was shooting the ball really well, and he was getting assists up there too. Then, obviously, there on the season, both actually got injured, and their numbers actually fell down. And then we thought LaMelo was done for the year. So after that, then we were like, okay, who's it, Edwards or Halliburton? And Edwards kind of took off in there as well. So, yeah, I like all three that you were mentioning there. Edwards is absolutely amazing. He's very athletic. Obviously, we're going to remember that one dunk that he did on Utah. So that's one to remember, obviously. And to me, personally, that is my dunk of the year candidate right there.
And crazy, no.
I hate to say it, but that was one of the nastiest posters I've seen in a while. Like I said, very athletic guy. He started balling out near the end of the year there as well on a team that hasn't made the playoffs in a while. Is looking for their new role in trying to advance, and he's excelled, and he's excelled as well. He's taking advantage of his opportunities, and he's right up there too. I just think LaMelo coming back off the injury is going to edge him over that, just because of what he's been able to do this year as well. No disrespect to any of those guys. This class was amazing this year. I think obviously we had rookies like Malachi Flynn, who we saw in our own. We had a couple of good rookies in Raptors. We saw Malachi Flynn and undrafted guys like Eddie Gillespie and stuff. So, there's a lot of potential in the league. I like where it's going, and I just have to edge LaMelo right now.
Fair. Well, Lamello looks like it's going to be Kev's pick.
Nowhere to go.
Not very loose.
Rozier
What do you
to
say?
the rookie. Lamello. Again.
Listen, guys. Someone, first of all, he had House of Highlights on Instagram become the House of Lamello. Okay.
I don't know who's handling that Instagram.
I don't know who's handling that Instagram, but whoever paid the commentators, the experience. And then, the funny thing is, like, you could think of it as more of a popularity contest at one point, but then you actually just dissect the way this team plays with Lamello versus not playing with Lamello. You can seriously see how big of an impact at such a young age he has. So to me, no matter what, there was no question that Lamello was the guy. Anthony Edwards, love his confidence. He has a lot of growing to do, but I do think with that type of confidence, great things will happen in the future. Finally, Halliburton, is that how you pronounce his name? On Sacramento, he even had games against Toronto really early in the season, just destroying us from three. He has a very odd 3-point shot for him, but it's worked and it's done. He's done it effectively, and he's been that role player. And we say this every year, sadly, like Sacramento, this might be the year. This might be the year. But with pieces like that, you never know. You never know. So next season, I'm actually excited for that team. So Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball, no doubt.
Fair. Well, as again, the little less consensus on this one around, but we will find out who is going to win that one. So let's move on to the next one. And this is one where I feel it's probably a bit of a runaway one. We don't have to think too much about it. But when we're talking about the guy who has taken the biggest step onto the next season from the previous one, the guy who has gone ahead and improved his game to such a degree that he's sitting in the top 4 seed as far as the East is concerned. So most improved player this year to me, and again, surprise all the way around, just because we have seen flashes of this in the past from this player, but not to the extent and the consistency that we are now seeing, not only from the player themselves, but from the team, who is now completely just all around taking advantage of the skill set that Julius Randle has brought this year. And obviously, first-time All-Star this year, incredibly well-deserved, had just an absolute beast of a season, where he has now ended up with a stat line of 24 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and most surprisingly, 2.5 threes in all of that as well, at pretty solid percentages. So most improved player to me, Julius Randle. Hats off to him. Huge improvement as far as every part of his game is concerned. That guy, Owais, what say you about the most improved player this year?
That's an incredible pick, and you take a look at the impact he has. So you have to agree with it in whatever way. However, I am a fan of the Raptors at heart, and as critical as I am of the Raptors, I can also acknowledge some successes. And one of those successes this season on the Toronto Raptors has been, our boy Chris Boucher, the Canadian-French slim duck. Okay. I will give him the credit where it's due. Given that role and given the adversity of the season, he was one of the most consistent players, averaging around what were some of his stat lines, if you could just pull that up for me. But ultimately,
Chris Boucher ended up the season on 14-7, shooting 51% from the field, hit 1.5 threes at over 40%. So definitely an efficient season for him.
Yeah, very efficient season. And, some of the games, as much as I'd like to say they're meaningless stats to me because the Raptors end up losing anyway. But, the type of role that he's created on the Raptors is very unique. I don't think you see a lot of that in the entire league, for instance. So, I like that he's also a decent shot blocker, and so he can do it on both ends of the court. And I actually think one of these days he might even be a 6th Man of the Year candidate. You know what I mean? So, as much as Julius Randle actually does deserve, and I think he will win, I want to give credit to Chris Boucher, and he might be one of those guys in that conversation. And I apologize, my cat is going crazy right now, and if it's making noise, I do apologize.
No worries. Sometimes we can all be a little bit catty, but it does look like it is, just from the names that we have got out there, that it is the return of the big man, isn't it? Just the scenario in which guys who are just able to Swiss Army knife their way while being those dominant bigs, because outside of obviously Julius Randle front running it, really for many parts of the early season, it looked like it would be Jeremy Grant or Christian Wood kind of running away with that, right? Both of them also having incredible seasons out there. But Kev, despite all of that, is Julius Randle also your pick to run away with this award?
100%. You can't deny what that team has been able to do, this year in total. So I was on the swing in the All-Star game, in All-Star break, and I didn't even pick them in the top 8. So
I did.
I got it. Yep. I have to apologize to a lot of people, including a lot of family members who saw this episode and dragged me about all year. So, I got to give credit's due. And, Randall has been healthy all year. He's been playing a ton of minutes as well. Thibodeau's been pushing him. I've seen minutes him in the 40s all the time. So, kudos to him. He's a hard worker. He's obviously had that Mamba mentality. He talked about working with Kobe, alongside Kobe. In his earlier years, so he's taking that mentality onto his team to the next level, and he's actually mentioned that he wants to even retire as a Knick. So the conversation. So we'll see how he's obviously deserving of a contract after what he's been able to do this year, and he's my front runner and runaway. And I got some recognition to, like what I was saying, Chris Boucher, Christian Wood, Jeremy Grant, although all those guys had great years. They just had some tickles in their injuries, which kind of cost them their kind of getting into the worst conversation. I even put Mike Porter Jr., who's been having a great, amazing comeback year. So he's been obviously suffered an injury early in the year as well. But ever since then, and since Murray went out, he's been stepping up his game hugely, and I commend him for that as well, for what he's able to do. So I'm gonna have to give it to Randall, obviously, and well deserved of everything he's doing.
Yeah, no, the work ethic has absolutely shown itself. Even RJ Barrett was talking about the fact that with Thibodeau and frankly with the lockdown situation, he's actually been able to push himself to do 3 a days as far as his workout regime is concerned. And many of them are following in the footsteps of Randall, who's kind of led a lot of that. So kudos to him. And as much as there's criticism on Thibodeau in the past in terms of running his players to the ground, clearly right now, at least the way it is, they're responding to him. The voice is working, and we'll see how the Knicks do once the playoffs actually begin. But Julius Randle looks like he will be running away with the hardware. We'll find out. But now we get to the last 2 awards. And in many ways, these last 2 awards are sometimes interchangeable in the sense that oftentimes the teams that are making the greatest amount of impact will have the players that are also in that running for either being the best defenders in the league or the most valuable players altogether. Funny enough, last year we had one guy having them both. Giannis running away with both the Defensive Player of the Year and the MVP. But it just seems like this isn't the year for him. It's kind of been to the wayside, where now we have a couple of other contenders going through. And I'm going to start with the Defensive Player of the Year. And in terms of my pick on here, while the Utah Jazz have been absolutely insane, while they have been the best team in the West, and while the other front runner for this award is the Stifle Tower, I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be a guy who has often had his struggles, not only in the playoffs on an offensive standpoint, but just in general, these other ways of improving his game, which are still up in the air. But one part of his game that has never been in question has been his elite defensive capabilities on the wing, in space. And it just comes from the fact that not only is he a huge 6'9" point guard, but the fact that he has this incredible lateral strength, incredible ability and vision, and that is Ben Simmons on the defensive end. And I'm going to go ahead and say that he is going to not only be recognized as an all-team first defense as he was last year, but he's going to make that final leap and go ahead and take the Defensive Player of the Year award in a year in which he averaged 1.6 steals, 0.6 blocks, but more so than the numbers, he held opposition guards to about 12% less on their averages when they were up against him versus anyone else. So just an absolutely incredible year for him and the Philadelphia 76ers, who are going to end the year off as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Ben Simmons is my pick. Kevin, what say you? Who are you looking at as far as the Defensive Player of the Year is concerned?
No arguments there as well. I mean, my pick is also Ben Simmons. Obviously, him coming into the league earlier, a couple of years ago, we didn't know what to expect with the best offense he had. But the only thing we always knew we had was defense. And, this year he was proven that you mentioned, obviously, the stats against his opponents in the points per game. So it's obviously the impact you could see what he makes in the defense against schemes, and for that size and guard and wingspan that he has for that position, it obviously is going to trouble the opposing guards no matter what. No matter who you're playing against, is obviously going to trouble them with that wingspan and hit the balls and everything. So kudos to him. He's stepped up a lot this year with that team. As much as we talk about his lack of offense sometimes and his shooting, his defense has always been there, and he took extra step this year, I think, in leading a Philly team up to the top 3. So kudos to them and him and Embiid, obviously. And it's going to be interesting to see what Philly does this year in the playoffs. Obviously, past couple of years, they've been knocked out by the shot. And then after last year, himself was injured and left Embiid alone. So let's see how they are this year. They look like a healthy team. Obviously, they got some additions as well. So kudos to him. And, he's my pick as well.
Yeah, it looks like trusting the process is going to hit its absolute zenith this year, and we're going to have to see if Philadelphia can finally take that next step, because at some point you're going to have to start getting some performance out of all that potential. But speaking of potential, who is your potential pick for the Defensive Player of the Year, that guy Owais?
It's a great question. I mean, people are talking about Ben Simmons, and I'm glad, he's having the success he's having, but I'm going to say something that's very important. You don't get those kinds of, stats without guys that help you. And one of those guys who often I feel like could be a Defensive Player of the Year every single year, Danny Green, continuously changes entire outlooks of defense on teams. And part of the success that Tobias Harris is having this season and Ben Simmons having season, or even like the Philadelphia Sixers in general are having a season, as defensive stalwarts, is because of that leadership you get with Danny Green. Now, I'm not going to say he's the Defensive Player of the Year, because for some reason, the impact he has is immense, but it's never going to be, they're never going to actually accept that, and they're never going to give him that award. However, you talk about guys like, we talked about Rudy Gobert, and it seems as if he's going to get it this season. But I also want to make mention of guys like, Clint Capela. I think he's also done a fantastic job there in Atlanta. Despite not having, them having an up and down season, some of the games that he's just really made it difficult for many people to enter the paint, averaging about like 2 to 3 blocks a game, and just making it hard for everyone. And so shout out to Clint Capela. Who's going to end up winning it? We all know it's probably going to end up being Rudy Gobert.
Do you know that? I don't know about that.
I really think it's just going to be him. Like Utah's first place for a reason, my friend. Like the defense, he stops a lot of guys, and he makes a lot of people better on the defensive end. So makes everybody's job a lot easier. Philadelphia, Ben Simmons, it's a combined effort, right? But he himself can be effective on his own, if that makes any sense. So I will have to disagree with the Ben Simmons pick and say the Defensive Player of the Year will be Rudy Gobert.
Okay.
Another year, another Gobert.
Well, the Stifle Tower is always going to be in the conversation, and he very well could run away with it as well, depending on how things go. So let's keep that one in mind. We'll see where that guy Owais ends up on his prediction versus the ones that Kevin and I had. But now we get to go ahead and cap it all off. Really finish off everything with the most valuable player of the year, season 2020-2021. And this has been a race that has actually been incredibly odd. It's kind of similar to what we spoke about as far as the season's characteristics are concerned. Wacky, unpredictable, and in many ways kind of lingering on the health and availability of a number of these players, because for a long part of the season, people were of the opinion that Giannis may potentially repeat. Then it moved on to, could it be LeBron repeating, and from a previous one? Could it be Steph Curry coming through and showing up with the way he has in the end of the season? Could it be James Harden moving on to Brooklyn, changing his role around and turning that Brooklyn team into an absolutely unstoppable offensive force? But in my mind, the one guy that has not only been available for this entire season, played the vast majority of the minutes, and led his team now to the 3rd seed in the West after the injury that has cost Jamal Murray the rest of the season. But even once that happened, the Denver Nuggets won 80% of their games since Jamal Murray went down, and it's happened because of the ultimate wild card, the ultimate joker, Nikola Jokic, who has had just an absolutely insane season all the way through. We spoke about the return of the big man, the fact that Joel Embiid was also in this conversation for a long time. But the return of the big man must be absolutely starting and ending, in my mind, with everything that Nikola Jokic has done to not only become this absolutely unstoppable offensive force, but he's doing that while also being 3rd in the league in terms of assists per game from a position that you obviously don't see that. So he's just such a different kind of force that you get. So to me, Nikola Jokic, with his incredible season, is the MVP pick. Owais, what say you as far as the MVP is concerned?
Jokic, we had an entire podcast about Denver and how great of a team that is and how much of it comes from his play, right? However, we talk about stories, and I think the most incredible story this season, apart from just that whole Charlotte experience, has been of the guy that has changed the culture and the outlook of the NBA. It's Steph Curry and what he's done with this depleted roster, mind you, without the likes of Klay Thompson, with that horrific injury to James Wiseman. He was a rookie, but he was still very, very important to that team. Carrying a team night after night, winning that scoring title, and absolutely putting on a show for everyone watching, whether they be in the stands from home, dreaming, because he's probably scoring on, a lot of his opponents there too, because he can't be stopped. He can't. I'm sorry. Steph Curry is the MVP this season. Changed my mind.
Well, the question often comes around with regards to where a team potentially ends up. Obviously, Steph Curry has had an incredible individual season. For even that Warriors team to be in the playoff hunt the way they are now, 100% is on the back of what Steph Curry has done. But Kevin, is that enough as far as a MVP vote is concerned? Is an 8th seed team good enough to be able to say that they had the most valuable player this year in the NBA?
This is one of the toughest ones I've seen in a while. I'm not like a runaway ones we've seen in the past couple of years. So, like you mentioned with Steph, unbelievable what he's doing this year. And just to get his team where they are, I actually predict them to be in 8th spot before the season started, and they end up being in 8th. But I didn't think there'd be the same impact what Steph is doing right now. Is playing an unbelievable pace. And, you mentioned the 8th spot, and, have you seen any MVPs before? We saw Russell Westbrook. I believe their team was an 8th seed.
No, 5th. Man.
Was they 5th?
Yeah, we got all the
when they won the MVP.
Yeah,
they won. Okay, so they were there, and they weren't expected to be anything either. And similar numbers, he was going off the charts that time as well. So, Steph, his impact on the team, and just to bring them where they are, just because I predict them to be 8th and to see them there, I'm going with the Joker as well. And the reason being is that, yes, there was injuries early in this year to, Jamal Murray, and the way he had to carry that team to where they, just keep that position, keep that where they are, and play, over 500 ball is actually pretty amazing. And, like I mentioned earlier with Michael Porter Jr. stepping up and others stepping up their game as well, but Joker has been the heart of that, soul of that team, and averaging almost a triple-double as well. So, to me, that is more of an impact to where a team is supposed to be right now than, after losing a guy like Murray. And, if you were asking me earlier in the season as well, I was looking at the MVP race. Joel Embiid was another candidate up there where, his numbers were dead on with Jokic. And I think at one point it was just them two. And no one else was talking about anybody else. So So yeah, it's been an interesting year. It's been a fun year, COVID year, and just because of that reason and injuries alone, we're gonna have amazing and to see argument to see who's gonna become the MVP. So in my mind, I'm gonna pick Jokic just because of the impact, but I wouldn't be surprised if Steph gets it either. To be honest with you.
Fair. In previous years, we've obviously had situations in which we felt someone may have been snubbed, someone may have gotten an award that we may have otherwise seen go elsewhere more deservingly, but I just don't think there is an undeserving candidate as far as this year is concerned. So definitely between Steph, between Jokic,
sure.
I might even be inclined to throw Chris Paul's name into there, bringing a team from the doldrums all the way up to the second seed. So all of these guys have had just outsized impacts, and as I said, it's at the conference finals time that we really get to find out exactly who is going to be, in the end, the MVP. Although I'm sure all of these players would much rather actually be playing at that time. I know we were speaking about it earlier in the season. It was almost like a bittersweet taste for Giannis to be announced as the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year literally the day after he gets knocked out of the second round. So I'm sure he's okay with not winning the award this year if the Milwaukee Bucks can go ahead and have a season that lives up to the talent that they've had year in and year out. But with that in mind, all of our picks are in. You guys, as the viewers, definitely give us the picks that you guys have for all of these different awards. As always, The Swing is all about the interaction with the community, interaction with our fans. We're going to post our picks over on our Instagram page, so make sure to follow at The Swing Podcast and give us your picks, give us your insights, give us something that we may have potentially missed. Because as always, that guy Owais and I, it's two guys, but it's the community that goes ahead and makes it. So with that in mind, we're off to be able to once again come back with our next episode in which we get to break down the playoff bracket once this play-in tournament finishes. So we're going to find out by Thursday who the finalized 8 teams are for both the East and the West. Crazy amount of games to be able to see before that. Obviously, tomorrow we get to see that Steph and LeBron once again adding another chapter to their storied rivalry at this point, and we'll see where that goes. But until then, thanks very much as always for joining us. Thanks, Kev, for coming on. We always love having you here, getting
always
the
pleasure,
opportunity
guys.
to get more insight. And that's what it's going to be. So that's HK, that's that guy Owais, and that's Kevin. And we will see you on the next episode. Peace.
Lillard, long range three. Let's go. Defended by Simmons.